For thousands of years, humanity has gazed upon the heavens, reading messages in the stars. From these celestial patterns, astrologers have predicted an endless list of world events, including natural disasters, stock market crashes, assassination attempts, and the birth of Jesus Christ. Astrologers have been prized by world leaders, from ancient Greek generals to 20th century American presidents. Even today, epoch-making decisions around the world are still made according to the arrangement of the stars in the sky. But can the movements of planets truly influence events on Earth? How can astrologers look at charts of the heavens and predict the outcome of a journey, marriage, or war? Is our future really written in the stars? In 18th century England, there were two men whose backgrounds could not have been more different. One was a humble ironmonger, the other, King George III of England. Despite this, their lives were full of extraordinary parallels. They inherited their father's businesses in the same month, married on the same day, fathered the same number of boys and girls, were ill at the same time, and suffered the same accidents. Even their deaths were separated by only a few hours. They weren't related by blood, but they were astrological twins, born at virtually the same time and only a few miles apart, and their horoscopes were identical. According to astrology, the similar pattern of their lives was entirely to be expected. Astrology in some form is familiar to everyone. Millions of people read their horoscope in the media each day, and even the most skeptical know their own zodiac sign. What they may not realize as they scan the newspaper columns is that they are the beneficiaries of the most far-reaching intellectual enterprise in human history. Known as the Queen of Sciences, astrology is our most ambitious attempt to combine science and philosophy into an overall explanation of destiny, and it's as old as recorded history. It began 5,000 years ago as people watched and noted the movement of the stars in the sky. Excited by these observations, they proposed a link between movements in the heavens and human lives on Earth. Since then, astrologers have maintained that there is a meaningful connection between planets and people, but they have never agreed on how or why, and perhaps modern science and the discovery of subatomic particles in the 20th century may just hold keys to how. Astrology has stood the test of time. It's as popular now as it has ever been, and it flourishes in every corner of the globe. Astrology being, by its own humanistic science, infinitely flexible, we just can't get away from the fact that it's one of the most accurate descriptions of character we have, and it can predict the future. The reason for the success and popularity of astrology is because it is a truth. It is something that is fundamental. Astrology comes from something higher than ourselves, as if it is a definitive part of the universe. Astrologers often report that when doing astrological consultations of birth charts, that people would say things that are uncannily true in accordance with the chart, even without being prompted. For most people, a horoscope means a brief impersonal prediction in a newspaper or on TV. These are designed to give the individual a chance to think about their day to come. It's a bit like a weather report for a specific part of the country. It is general in nature, but often summarizes events and circumstances pertaining to the day-to-day life of the relative zodiac sign it is referring to. But these written columns refer solely to the signs of the zodiac, referred to as sun signs. The zodiac is the name given to the band of constellations in the sky through which the sun, moon, and planets appear to pass as they journey through the heavens. The Romans compared the movement of the planets through this starry backdrop to a chariot race. The sun, moon, and planets are the chariots, and the constellations are the racetrack. The zodiac is divided into 12 divisions or signs. Everyone born during the approximate 30 days it takes the sun to travel through one division is said to belong to that sign, and astrologers believe that they will share its characteristics and influences. Sun sign predictions are very generalized, but despite this, newspaper horoscope columns have a large following. Sun sign astrology, as it appears in the newspapers, interests millions of people, which is often why some people buy a particular paper. There can be a great variation in the quality of content from these columns, as it will depend on the columnist's capacity to interpret daily events and divulge them in a usable, relatable, and somewhat accurate manner. A true horoscope is more than just a sun sign description. It's a personal chart describing the astrological influences relating solely to that individual. The chart is cast by an astrologer and is known as a natal chart. This is a map of where the planets are at the time of your birth, and it is a unique map that relates to you in particular. From that information, an astrologer can then tell you about your potential, the type of person you are, the type of experiences you may have during your life, and how you could perhaps understand difficult areas in your personality. Astrologers can make accurate observations from that natal chart to reveal whether a person is outgoing, anxious, musical, technical, or emotional, and it can indicate an individual's most likely professions. The chart is a snapshot of the heavens at the exact moment of birth. The pattern of the skies can change in as little as 4 minutes, so no one except those born within moments of each other in the same place could lay claim to the same horoscope. Astrological twins, like George III and the Ironmonger, are considered more likely to have similar lives than identical twins born a few crucial minutes apart. Many people don't know the exact time of their birth, but this doesn't prevent them from having a horoscope cast. Usually, astrologers cast a chart for sunrise on the birth date, but there is a longer process called rectification, whereby the astrologer works backwards from the events of a person's life to their most probable birth time. Anyone who knows their birthday can visit one of our astrologers to have their horoscope drawn. It's not a lot different from going to see any other consultant, except first you have got to provide your birth date, place, and time of birth prior to the individual attending the appointment. The astrologer will then have the chance to calculate and review a chart, a horoscope, and what the current conditions surrounding that individual are. Additionally, natal charts can be drawn up for anything which has a birth date. Cities, even structures, can have charts. The Berlin Wall, for example, built in August 1961, had a horoscope which predicted a time of instability and change, and the dissolution of its structure for November 1989, when the planets Saturn and Neptune came together in the sky. What astrologers have done for centuries is to calculate particular politically important moments for each country. For one country, it may be a revolution. For another, a coronation. So, in the United States, for instance, we take July 4th, 1776, which is when the wording of the Declaration of Independence was agreed, and this is when the United States celebrates its birthday. Drawing charts for places, groups, or countries is known as mundane astrology. It's the most ancient form of astrology and the one most commonly used by world leaders in history. These horoscopes show the most auspicious time to begin important enterprises, whether it's making an important speech or declaring war. Astrologer Joan Quigley used mundane astrology to select the time for Ronald Reagan's second inauguration as President of the United States. She chose 11:57 a.m. in a chart set for Washington, D.C. as it is a particularly positive chart for such an event. The Sun was in the sign of Aquarius, Ronald Reagan's sign, and Jupiter, the planet of growth, expansion, and opportunity, was next to the Moon, which signals popularity and the public. There could have been no better indication for a successful administration, according to Joan Quigley. The role of Quigley in the White House was a highly secret one, but politically important dates in modern Malaysia and India are still decided by public astrological readings. A horoscope is based upon a map of the heavens. It's a very detailed map, and modern astrology now uses computers to do its otherwise time-consuming task of physically drawing up the chart. The role of the computers is similar to what it was to have students of astrology many years ago. They were doing the routine calculations for the astrologer, but the actual analysis is done by a professional. Some of these students eventually broke off into their own group and became what we now know as the modern-day astronomer, more interested in the scientific and physical attributes of the universe rather than its impact on our daily lives and events. The map comes to life when a skilled astrologer begins to read it. Astrology is a technical subject, requiring considerable knowledge of the planetary influences revealed in the chart. Practice and experience are the key. Astrologers do not claim that horoscopes categorically predict the future. They say that the stars don't compel, they only incline. So no horoscope would declare that an accident is going to happen, only that a particular moment is accident-prone. Astrologers aim to provide their clients with extra information, thus adding to choices, not restricting them. Many people find that having an astrological consultation provokes thought and forces concentration on the issues, helping them with decision-making. How can analyzing a map of the heavens affect the personalities and actions of people on Earth? The solution lies in astrologers' belief in the nature of planetary influence, a belief that began 5,000 years ago and is only now in the past century getting closer to uncovering that physical link. Around 3000 BC, the foundations of astrology were laid among the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia, now Iraq. Here in a region called Babylonia, the first astrologers stood on their 300-foot-high ziggurats and gazed at the stars. They noticed how the most obvious heavenly bodies, the planets, seemed to follow strangely erratic paths, sometimes passing each other at great speed, sometimes slowing down, and even going backwards. These ancient observers worked out what 20th century scientists using space probes and telescopes have confirmed, that the planets have regular orbits and that they vary in position, brightness, and speed as they follow their paths. The Babylonians also began to record a connection between these patterns and events on Earth. The Mesopotamian philosophy, which continued well into classical Greece and Rome and into Renaissance Europe, was that the whole world was alive. By the whole world, they meant the universe, the stars, as well as the Earth. They continually believed that nature was talking to them, and behind nature were the forces which they called the gods and goddesses. For the Babylonians, the forces of nature extended into space, which they saw as inseparable from earthly life. These first astrologers saw the planets as embodying the powerful yet capricious gods and goddesses, each planet resembling in appearance and movement the character of its god. The Babylonians and later the Greeks and Romans believed that these planets, all different, exerted their influences upon life on Earth, and that the closer each planet locked in its orbit came to the Earth, the more strongly people on Earth were affected by it. This ancient idea of the planets as forces with distinctive personalities and effects is still the cornerstone of astrological belief. and the basis on which horoscopes are interpreted. The core function of a horoscope is to record the positions of the planets so that their influences can be assessed. This is amplified by discoveries in particle interactions with the Earth created by our Sun and redirected and emanated by the planets, each producing its own set of energetic interactions with our human souls and life on Earth as we know it. This chart, the horoscope of John F. Kennedy, is recorded in a shorthand developed by astrologers through the centuries. Although this shorthand has changed little over the years, the mechanics of drawing the chart have been transformed by computers. But astrologers still learn to calculate and draw charts in the traditional way, using astrological tables and using symbols known as glyphs. If we wanted to calculate the horoscope for President Kennedy, we would first of all need to look at his time, date, and place of birth. He was born at 17 minutes past 3 in the afternoon in Brookline, Massachusetts on the 29th of May, 1917. Our first simple calculation is to work out what the time was in London, which we would call Greenwich Mean Time. The reason is quite simple. All the planetary tables are calculated for London. Now with that information, we can then go to the table of houses and make one slight further adjustment and then look up his rising sign, which happened to be Libra. The rising sign is the sign rising over the eastern horizon when you were born. In astrology, the rising sign or ascendant is as important in your horoscope and character as the sun sign. So taking President Kennedy's chart, his rising sign is Libra. We mark that carefully on the left-hand side, and then if we are using the whole signs house system, we fill in the rest of the signs of the zodiac around the outside, through right round the circle, round back to Virgo. The chart's further set of divisions are known as the houses of the chart. They refer to practical areas of human life, such as your self-personality and appearance, right through to things such as family, money, travel, work, and relationships. The next stage is to work out where the planets were at the time of birth. We go for this information to a book called an ephemeris, which lists the positions of the planets for every day of the year. Taking President Kennedy's chart, for example, he was born with the sun in Gemini and the moon in Virgo. The planetary positions in the ephemeris are given to the nearest degree very precisely. So we're not just looking at the sign the planet is in, but also the precise degree of the sign. We go around and do the same with the other 8 planets. Once the planets have been recorded on the chart, interpretation can begin. The astrologer must know the influences identified with each planet. In Kennedy's chart, the most significant planets are Jupiter, the planet of leadership and success, Mercury, the planet of the mind and communication, Mars, the planet of war, Venus, the planet of love, and Pluto, the planet of death and endings. The relationship of planets to each other can be as important as the individual effect. One powerful grouping is a key feature of Kennedy's chart. It's interesting to see that he had a very, very powerful conjunction of planets in Taurus. A conjunction means the planets are linked very tightly within 8 degrees and a sign. He had Jupiter, which is a planet of optimism and growth, Mercury, which is the planet that ruled his mental processes and ideas, and Mars, which is the planet of anger and aggression, and in politics indicates war. Taurus is a sign that is very persistent and very stubborn, achieving its aims without deviation. I think this alignment indicates his success in standing up to the Soviet Union in Berlin and Cuba. Of course, looking at the chart very literally, Mars in ancient times ruled arrows and spears, and in modern terms that would be missiles. The angles between planets in a chart, or aspects in astrological terms, are also important. The next stage of interpreting the planets is to look at the planetary aspects. These are precise distances between planets. Some are difficult and others are easy. In Kennedy's chart, the moon was making two difficult aspects, one to Venus and one to the Sun. The moon forming a square aspect to Venus, which is a 90-degree angle from each other, is very difficult emotionally. This represents the deep internal conflict he felt between his love for Jackie and his desire to explore relationships with other women, like Marilyn Monroe. The same would have happened between the moon and the sun, which can often represent divorce or the breakup of a marriage in its pure interpretation. Perhaps had Kennedy lived, we would have seen this private turmoil. Modern astrologers often help clients in their personal lives, but predicting events has always been part of astrology. The most famous astrologers have foretold major events, even the beginnings of new eras. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a small group of Persian astrologers observed an unusual conjunction in the heavens. They discovered that this had been predicted by the astrologer-philosopher Zoroaster, and that it would herald the birth of a new king. The astrologers set off on a long journey, working out the time and place of the new king's birth from their astrological observations. When they reached the spot, they found only a baby lying in a stable that had been born at the precise time of the planetary conjunction. The astrologers were the Magi, and the baby was Jesus. Astronomer Dr. Percy Seymour has studied the skies as they were at the time of the birth of Christ. He found a rare association between the planet Jupiter, traditionally associated with kings, and Saturn, associated with the Jewish people. He stated that these two planets actually did a dance in the sky and came together 3 times in 1 year. That's called a triple conjunction. But there was something even more significant about this triple conjunction. It occurred in the constellation of Pisces. Pisces was associated with the area around Bethlehem, and a triple conjunction in Pisces only takes place once every 900 years. He states that they said that a king of Jewish origin was about to be born in Bethlehem, so they went in search of this king. They might even have made use of the census to find out which baby was born at the right time, and then told his mother that he was born to be king. The Magi may have even arrived in Bethlehem prior to Jesus' birth and went looking for the child born at this particular time, only to find it was a child in a stable, an unlikely and unexpected king in this instance. When the child of a royal lineage was due to be born, there was only one person more anxious than the expectant father, the court astrologer. In a Macedonian palace in 356 BC, the court was expecting the new child of King Philip II. Olympias, Philip's wife, had gone into labor. The astrologer pleaded with Olympias to try to delay the birth as long as possible. If she could do so, her child would have an extraordinary horoscope and become one of the greatest leaders the world had ever known. Somehow Olympias managed to do as the astrologer asked, and eventually her son was born into his epic-making horoscope. Olympias had given birth to Alexander the Great. The fortunes of astrology waxed and waned during the Middle Ages. By the 16th century, astrology in Europe had become highly refined, well regarded, and an essential qualification for any educated person. Astrology was a mainstream academic subject taught in universities alongside mathematics, medicine, and astronomy. It was used by doctors, scientists, and high-ranking intellectuals. One of the most famous astrologers of all time was John Dee, who was a personal astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I of England. He was responsible for some of the most important decisions taken in one of the most important reigns in English history. Dee's work included acting as a spy for Elizabeth, but astrology, not foreign intelligence, was the cornerstone of his instructions to his queen. he chose propitious dates for all important events. One of his greatest successes came in 1588, when he advised Elizabeth on the timing of England's victorious confrontation with the Armada, the invading naval force of Spain. The way he would have worked would be to have looked at Mars, which was England's planetary ruler. If that was stronger than Jupiter, which was Spain's planetary ruler, he would have said the Armada would fail, as it did. He would have looked at other factors, such as Mercury, which rules the winds, and said that the Armada might be blown off course, as it was. This was the heyday of astrology. In the 1600s, there were more than 200 well-known astrologers working in London. People went to an astrologer when they were ill, had suffered a loss or reversal of fortune, or were considering marriage or business ventures. The first ever weekly horoscope dates from this time. It was called The Starry Messenger and was written by William Lilly, who was famous for predicting the Great Plague and the Great Fire of London. William Lilly practiced horary astrology, an ancient method designed to answer specific questions such as whether a relationship will result in marriage or even the whereabouts of a lost ring. This practice is still used today and is available as a service from one of our professional astrologers in our Astro College community. By the 20th century, we had come full circle back to finding personal astrologers next to political leaders and ordinary people seeking advice from newspaper horoscopes or their local astrologer. They have decisions to make and use horoscopes to help them. During the Second World War, Hitler secretly employed an astrologer, Karl Kraft. The Allies discovered this and decided to employ one too, hoping their astrologer would come to the same conclusions as Kraft. When Kraft compared the charts of Rommel and Montgomery just before the North African campaign, he could see that Britain was certain to be the winner. Hitler's response was to put Kraft in jail and carry on with the ill-fated campaign. In the 1980s, President Reagan was inclined to follow the advice of his astrologer, Joan Quigley, who had revealed to his wife, Nancy, and was to predict the assassination attempt on Reagan's life. Thereafter, she was involved in all the major and many of the minor decisions of the president's schedule. Her calculations would be as precise as selecting the time that the president's aircraft, Air Force One, would leave on a trip for a summit conference. A message would go from Mrs. Quigley to Mrs. Reagan to the president's office that the president's plane should take off at a specific hour for a summit meeting, and it did. In the winter of 1986 to 87, Quigley was worried about the movements of Uranus and Saturn. She felt they indicated a danger of assassination. For 4 months, Reagan stayed inside the White House, emerging only once to give the State of the Union address. Every event in the president's life was timed by the casting of horoscopes. But how did horoscopes help Reagan with the bigger issues of the presidency?